We're probably going to cry.
Yeah. Well, I already have, so maybe I'll do it again.
So, because today we're talking about shame, I thought it would be a fitting episode to follow up our very first one because then you could get to know about us a little bit better. And it's been such a huge part of our lives thus far. And a very important part, but a very negative and unnecessary part that we would have probably loved to have avoided altogether.
Yeah, that would have been real nice. But, I guess we wouldn't be the hilarious, introspective, empathetic people we are today. I mean, maybe we would have been. If we could be exactly who we are, as awesome as we are, without going through trauma and pain, that's a good question. Would I avoid it? I don't know that I would.
I mean,
I don't know that I would go back and say I don't want any of those experiences, but
you would not be who you were today without those experiences.
it has been a very integral part of our lives. I think it's been interwoven into pretty much everything we think about and do. And I just turned 30, and it's wild to think about how much of my life I've spent hating myself.
You know what? I don't even think that I knew that it was shame until I started doing the coaching stuff. I just thought that it was me, and I didn't realize that this was something that could be changed.
Oh my God, that's so true. That's so true. I think when I started working with Heather in 2020, I started actually being aware of the fact that my thoughts and behavior and all of these things that were so deep that I didn't really think that they were changeable were actually very moldable and changeable. And there were so many times, like when I first started working with a coach and like kind of going through the modules, going through the information, then I started to actually have real hope. Because for a long time, I just thought I was destined to be miserable. Like I just thought, I'm a miserable person. I have some moments of joy, but they're fleeting. Even though my life is good, like even though I have a home, I, live in a city, I have a car, like all these things that are very practically like good things in my life, I was miserable. I've been miserable for so much of my life, and I hated my life and I hated myself. And I just thought I was just meant to be a miserable, depressed person. And it turns out that's actually not true at all.
Same. So I have felt miserable for most of my life. Oh my God. Anyway, not that I wanted to kill myself, dark, heavy subject, but I didn't have like the will to live. I was just kind of wandering through life. Like I always felt that life was completely pointless because I didn't understand why people wanted to wake up, work 9 to 5, eat dinner, and then go to sleep and then do the same thing every day for the 40 years that they have of their adult working lives. And I'm like, this is miserable because I felt like that was the track that I was headed on. And I was like, this is pointless. Like, what are we doing? I didn't understand that other people were having fun with their lives and I was just miserable in mine. Like I never wanted kids because I never wanted kids because of how miserable I was. So I never wanted kids because I didn't want to have a child that would grow up as miserable as I was.
Yeah, and I have had like suicidal thoughts like throughout. I would say maybe they started somewhere around like 2011, 2012. Like I can kind of pinpoint that as the start of like when I started to feel like I had depression to the point that I wanted to go to a doctor and talk about it. And and since about 2011, 2012, it hasn't been every single year, but it has been frequent enough to that it just sort of followed me through my life, just haunting me. And like if there were points in my life where it would get harder, I would feel suicidal. And I think that the shame really ties into a lot of that. But again, like you said, I don't think either of us knew that that is one of the deepest things that was underlying a lot of this. And so, and I just chalked it up to a whole host of things. A little bit of family history here, a little bit of this is just the card I was dealt, I guess, and a little bit of it, or maybe a big chunk of it, felt like it was personal. It felt like I was fucked up, and that I had fucked up to lead to a fucked up, shitty existence inside. And I was just like, this is my fault somehow. I don't know what I did or didn't do. Like, it was just like, I'm not disciplined enough to be a 5 a.m. wake up, positive, go-getter kind of person. Even though if you looked at me in my life, you would have, and many people did and still do, called me a go-getter. I felt like I was a lazy piece of shit. And now I don't use lazy at all. And I don't use, because I don't think that rest, anyways, there's so much more there's so many tangents I want to go on, but I felt like I was not doing enough to improve my life and my situation. But there were so many other factors underlying me feeling so bad. And it wasn't just about me doing practical things to help myself feel better, which is part of it. It was like there were so many other underlying things that I actually needed to like excavate and get deep help with, like spiritually on a soul level. I needed help understanding that my life was worth something, and that I was worth working on and nurturing, that I was worth my own attention and care. But I thought I could hate myself into being better. And it turns out that is not possible.
Should we backtrack and go over the definition of shame?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Shame is an unpleasant, self-conscious emotion often associated with negative self-evaluation, motivation to quit, and feelings of pain, exposure, distrust, powerlessness, and worthlessness.
Wow. So imagine, and I'm sure if you're listening or watching, I'm sure you don't actually need to imagine, because I'm sure if you found our podcast that some level of this connects with you already, and you've probably felt shame throughout your life. So you don't have to imagine, you've probably felt it. This is a pretty intense definition. Negative self-evaluation, check. Motivation to quit all the time, every day. Quit what you're doing and also quit your life. Mm-hmm. Feelings of pain regularly. Exposure, that's interesting. Like feeling like you were, like being vulnerable was uncomfortable because you felt like, I always felt like I felt like it was a burden. Like I felt like sharing my deepest, darkest moments was only going to burden or bum out the people around me. So I kept it inside mostly, which just caused me more pain. Distrust, yeah, like not trusting people enough to share your inner self. And then powerlessness and worthlessness, those are...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shame is who you are as a person. You feel shame because you feel like you are a bad person and you are worthless. That's what shame is, right? Mm-hmm. And then what was the other one? Guilt?
Yeah. So when I think this was Brene Brown, I'm 99% sure. But she talked about shame versus guilt. And she talked about when you feel guilt, it's often like I did something that I'm not happy with and I feel bad about that. But shame is like I did something I'm not happy with and I am bad. Mm-hmm. And I think shame goes so deep to say that it's not even about I did something that I'm not happy with or not that I'm not proud of.
No,
or
it's just I am
It's just
bad.
I am bad.
Yeah. And like because you don't know any better, you don't even know that that's what you think.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, this is my life. It sucks. This is it.
And like there's a small example that I think I notice in specifically a lot of women, a lot of my friends, and I try to call it out anytime I see it. But I notice a lot of people saying sorry for absolutely no reason. And I stopped doing that a couple of years ago. But I noticed, I don't know. I mean, gosh, there's so many examples. But like a friend comes over. Oh, sorry. Can I have a glass of water? I'm like, Are you sorry? Are you sorry for needing hydration because you're a human being? Like, I know that sounds really patronizing and I'm not trying to say it like that. Are you sorry?
Thing. Yeah. Or like, you're a person. Why are you sorry?
Like, and having needs.
Yeah.
Like, even regularly, we will say like, oh, hey, can I have a hug? And I'm like, yeah, sweet. Come on in, man. Like, let's do it. Yeah. But our basic human needs for love and connection, we feel bad for asking for these things. But this is what being part of a community and being in connection is here for.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've told people, like, stop apologizing for existing. You're just fucking existing.
Yeah.
I welcome it.
Yes. I'm happy you exist, so you don't have to apologize for it.
Okay, so next topic. Where do you think your shame came from? So I want to preface this by saying that I love my parents. I know that they did the best that they could. But this is kind of how I felt about it. I'm not saying that they did anything wrong. I'm saying I think that I am a hypersensitive person. And the way that I responded to their criticism was completely different to the way that my brother and my sister responded to it. So I guess I just internalized everything, and I thought I was a bad person. Like they wanted me to be the doctor, the lawyer, stuff like that. And it wasn't always for my parents, like other people just in my life, like people telling me all the time that I'm too sensitive. Well, why am I too sensitive? That means that there's something wrong with me. And then I internalize that, and then now there's something wrong with me. Growing up with all of that, you're too this, you're too that, why are you crying? Why are you doing this? I like internalized all of that, and then I think that's where it began. And then once you have that small seedling, it just grows, because then you don't really know what else to look for, and then you find like, what's it called? Like self-confirming bias. Like you look for other reasons why you're a bad person, and then like, oh look, yeah, I am a bad person. And it just grew and blossomed from there.
Yeah, I'll also preface, and I think throughout this episode and maybe episodes in the future, we may draw on our past experiences and sometimes our childhoods as well. And I'd also like to preface that I know my parents did the best they could with the resources they had and what they knew. I'm very grateful to have, here we are. Here's the crying. I didn't think it would happen this soon into the episode. I'm very grateful to have access to the mental health resources that I have had in my, I would say like mid-20s is probably when I started exploring this in the very beginning, but probably closer to like 27, 28 years old. But there's Instagram accounts that I follow that deep dive into mental health there. And I had access to coaching in 2020, and I've been in therapy now for years. So I recognize that I have different perspectives on what has happened in my life, and that I'm also very grateful to have these perspectives and this understanding of myself based on the resources I've been able to access. And I understand that my parents, growing up in a different generation, didn't have access to these resources. And that being said, saying that I know that they did the best they could, and that they, these were the resources they had, that I also feel that I didn't get all of my emotional needs met, and that in part led to some mental health difficulties throughout my life. So I think both can be true. And I think, I don't know, like talking about childhood and talking about your parents is probably going to trigger some people, especially if they're parents, because it probably will trigger shame in them, feeling like, oh no, I'm hearing this person talk about their childhood. What if I'm messing up my kids? Or what if I've messed up my kids? So I hope that those of you listening can take breaks if you need to, and take everything we're saying with the understanding that this is just our personal experiences and our personal perspectives, and you are welcome to feel however you feel about it.
Yeah, and I wanted to add that like my parents also provided everything that they could, and for them, growing up in a third world country, that was money. So like they gave me all the money that they had. I had resources growing up. I had a car, not my own car, but I was driving at 17. So I had all the financial resources available to me. But as a hypersensitive person, I think what I needed was like the emotional support. That might be like a first world problem for most people. I've been told that I have privilege because I am able to care about my emotions so much. And that might be true. Like if you're struggling, like sometimes you just don't have time to think about these things. But you can't separate this from your childhood, unfortunately. I would love to. But yeah, I was financially very well taken care of. But as a hypersensitive person, I really feel like I just wanted to be held and like told that they loved me for who I was, even if I wasn't a doctor, and that I was fine. And there was nothing wrong with me. That's what I think I needed.
I want to touch on something that you said, because I don't think I agree with you that there's people who are dealing with like different financial circumstances or they're struggling in different ways and that they're not able to provide that emotional connection. But I don't think emotional connection is a privilege to I think emotional connection is a necessity, like food and water. And something that my therapist said to me that I thought was very interesting is she said, people always say children are resilient. But if children were resilient, then I wouldn't be seeing so many adults in my practice based on things that happened to them as a kid. And I think that that's very interesting. And I think, we can be appreciative for everything that we received, a warm home, food, extracurricular activities, and love in different forms. It wasn't a completely loveless existence. However, there were emotional needs that we did need to be met. They weren't non-negotiables because we grew up with this like gaping hole in our souls.
Yeah, you're right.
Just like wondering what was so wrong with us and learning how to fill it ourselves. And it's unfortunate. It's just the reality. And like we are adults and we are now learning how to take care of ourselves because that is our responsibility.
Yeah.
It's not our wound. We didn't cause the wound, but it's our responsibility to heal it.
Yeah. And just to wrap up that thought, like no parent is perfect. Every child will have their own issues. This just happened to be ours.
Welcome to our issues.
Yeah. So anyway, how did the shame manifest for you? What does shame look like in your day-to-day life?
I think shame for me, one of the deepest beginnings of it, from when I look back, started when I learned I was gifted. And I say that in quotations because I have a lot of personal opinions on that categorization system of children. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember so in grade 3, when I was in grade 3, I remember I would get assignments in class and I would finish them really quickly. And then I had a stack of Mary-Kate and Ashley novels and I would read through them. And I would read maybe like 2 novels. And my teachers noticed and they were like, Jordan, are you bored? And I was like, I mean, I have my books, so not really. But I finished my work early. Apparently, in the year 2000, they were giving children IQ tests if they noticed that the kids were excelling in certain ways. Now, why the IQ test was necessary, I will never know. Because if you can see that a child is completing their work, and the work is satisfactory or excelling, like if you're getting A's, then why the need to now figure out, is this, I don't understand. Truly, I don't know why the IQ test was necessary. But I did an IQ test along with another boy in my class, and then they gave me the option. And they told my parents, they said, there is a school in Windsor where all of the gifted children can go and learn in a classroom together. I went on to the gifted class. And I feel like that changed everything for me because it gave me a level of internal and like almost intellectual responsibility that I don't think I needed as a 9-year-old. Like I think that your job as a 9-year-old should be to learn and play and enjoy your life and be loved. I don't think your job as a 9-year-old is to like strive harder, excel more, learn faster. I just don't see the point. And I'm very much a believer in like child-directed learning and homeschooling and unschooling and forced schooling. So I don't think that this path was right for me, but that's the path that I took. And I chose that, actually. I thought, might be fun to move schools. I loved learning, but I definitely think that the level of responsibility it put on me was really intense. I wanted to be a doctor, and my parents never really put pressure on me to be a doctor. That was like the path that I chose because I was interested in science and I wanted to help people. And for me, I think that intense focus on a future career, consider like you're 9 years old and you are already not just thinking like maybe one day I'd like to be a teacher, but very much on the track to I need good grades now. In grade 4, that is apparently going to make or break the rest of my life. Spoiler alert, it didn't. I think it just put a lot of pressure on me. My parents always said, you can do anything you put your mind to, and like we will support you whatever career path you choose. That being said, I did notice as a little like tiny cute kid saying, I want to be a doctor. I got a lot of attention and praise for that. And I found that very interesting looking back as an adult. So I think there's a difference between saying you can do anything you choose and then the practicality of actually getting that attention, reward, and praise, not only from my parents, but from my parents' friends, from my grandparents, who on that side of the family, on my mom's side, a lot of them are doctors and pharmacists. So I think my mom's parents, my grandparents, were also really excited by this fact. And throughout my childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood, because until about the age of 22, I still wanted to be a doctor, they praised me on it all the time. They asked me questions about it. So I don't know. I think that the academic pressure built within me at a very young age. And I felt like if I didn't succeed academically, that I was a failure and my life was worthless. And it sounds dramatic, but that's truly how I felt. If I didn't do well on a test, that never happened because I always did well on tests because I felt like I had to. Like I excelled out of necessity because I felt like if I didn't, my life was over.
So I'm hearing like you basically like strived all the time because you felt like you were never enough.
True. I felt like I was never enough. Yeah.
For me, I was also a very, very smart child, and it was always repeated like when we were young. I remember we would be given homework for the day when I was very young, and I would just finish it in class and then go home and then not have to do any homework. Like that extra 5 minutes at the end of the day, everyone was talking or whatever, I would just do my homework and then I'd be done. So I got a lot of praise for that too, and I did not work for that smartness at all. So I felt like it was inherent in that you were either smart or you weren't. And that for me kind of carried on into every other skill in life. Like you were either good at sports or you weren't. I did not make the connection that people could work on these things and that they could build skill. So me, eventually, like school caught up to me in university. I did well enough in high school without ever studying. And I thought that, okay, I was smart, I can do it. And then I went to university, and then there were a whole bunch of other people that were smarter than me. And that was when everything kind of started falling apart for me. Because like if you couple that with ADHD, I didn't know how to study. And I didn't really believe that the studying was going to make me better because I thought smartness was just a thing that you had. And so I just kind of stopped trying. And I never tried in anything else in life because I just wasn't good at it. And I didn't understand that you had to try in order to become good at it, which is very silly to say out loud now, but I thought you were either good at things or you weren't. So because I wasn't, I didn't even try because I was like, what's the point? I'm going to suck anyways. It's ridiculous. But basically, I didn't do anything for my entire life just because I was like, well, I'm going to suck at it. So why even bother?
Yeah, that's such a good point, and I had never heard it said that way exactly, but that is pretty well sums up my experience too. For example, I never considered myself athletic or good at sports, so I never tried. So I did well, or as well as I could in every subject except for French. I didn't care. Things like geography, things that couldn't really grab my attention, I would just sort of skim by, like I did well enough. And gym, I assumed that I could not do it because I would see people that were naturally athletic, that were gifted at sports. And I would assume that I had been gifted at reading and nothing else. I tried really hard in math, but I wasn't good at it. And I guess I also believed on some level that I couldn't get better at math, like that I could just struggle and just skim by. I think I had this self-fulfilling prophecy of not being naturally good at something means that you'll never be anything better at it. And it's like, maybe I would never be the best at math or the best at gym or like the most athletic, but I probably could have improved more had I had that self-belief that the improvement was actually possible with practice.
And then growing up, like being praised on smartness and like sucking at something, I thought that I wasn't deserving of things because I was bad at it. So like I wouldn't want to play sports because I was bad at it because I didn't deserve to play sports. And then that like just ties back into your whole identity. Like we just went to a watercolor class and it was so fun, and I have been obsessed with watercolor for my entire life. But I didn't identify as a good artist, so I never tried. And I thought because I was a bad artist, I didn't deserve to paint at all. Because like painting would be failing because it sucked.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it too. And I was always really into crafts and creative pursuits like that as a kid. Like I used to make my own cards, jewelry, candles. But when it came to being in art class in high school, I specifically remember feeling almost put down because there were certain techniques that I just wasn't grasping. And I felt like, okay, I am bad at art. As I grew and like, in my young adulthood, when I started picking up these things, I could actually feel the discomfort in my body of starting them. And I still have that discomfort. I still feel like when I start painting that I'm somehow going to like fuck it up, ruin the painting. When you can't ruin art. Art is subjective. It's an experience. It's something for you to do. If you like playing basketball, you might go outside and just bounce the basketball around and play. Art is play. But I always saw these activities as you're bad or you're good. And so many of them, I felt like I was bad. And so I had a lot of internal shame around doing them at all. Like I didn't want to be bad at anything because I didn't want to be bad. I wanted so badly to be good. I actually have a beautiful but very emo poem in my phone about being good and all my feelings around it. And I really feel like I internalized this good girl image for my entire life until maybe a year ago.
There has been a lot happening in our lives around shame. And I feel like I'm finally at a point where I'm now starting to look forward to the rest of my life. Like I have finally healed that. I'm like, I know it's not all gone, but I'm actually excited to grow. And I know that there's possibilities now. I know that I can work on things and become better at them. And I know that like it's okay to suck. I know that's like a step in getting better. Like I understand all of that now. And learning all of that has been integral to moving past the shame. How do you think you've kind of worked on your shame and like moving past it or growing from it, healing it? I don't know how you want to say it.
There's so many things that I've done, I think, to sort of help move that process along, but it's very much not like a one and done. Like you don't just like go to the doctor and you're like, I have shame. And they're like, okay, here, take this vitamin every day. And like slowly your body will heal. It's like I really do describe it as excavating. Like you're in there in the trenches, like fucking with a big shovel digging, and you're sweating and you're crying and you don't want to be digging anymore, but you have to keep digging.
It's literally like a habit, like an identity that you have to change and like move past.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I think the identity piece is really big. Actually, that brings me to what I said to you earlier. So, for the majority of my life, I would say up until not that long ago, maybe a couple of months even. This is all like a very fresh process for us. I feel like we've come to these realizations quite recently.
If anyone's been watching me for the year, I've done like a 360 this year.
Yeah.
180. 180 this year.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I think same here. And I think I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, and like she said she's known me since about 2018, and she's like, you've grown so much since then. And I'm like, I know. And I really have felt, and there's been so many, so we'll get to that, I guess, now, is there's been so many pieces in what I would call my soul's evolution. One of the biggest parts, and if you're listening to this and you're really hard on yourself, you're going to hate this. Gentleness. It is when you're in the depths of hating yourself and trying so hard to fucking hate yourself into being better, gentleness sounds like a fucking joke. It sounds like someone's making fun of you or trying to pull a prank on you. Someone's like, you just have to be less hard on yourself. You're like, oh, really? Really? Is that all I have to do? Wow, thank you so much. That's really helpful. Because it feels fake. It feels like a lie. But it actually has been an integral part in healing myself, because throughout my life, I have been so hard on myself. And we'll get into in future episodes talking about both of our lives with ADHD, and eventual realization that we have ADHD. But for so much of my life, I just thought I wasn't good enough to feel better, that I wasn't disciplined enough to feel better in my life. I think shame is deeply tied into depression for me. And I can actually kind of look back on some of my previous depressive episodes and sort of link them to specific incidents, whether it was academic related, whether it was friendship related, where I felt like I'm bad, and it leads to a depressive shame spiral. So I think one of the first things that you need to do is just to like really gently and lovingly care for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And to stem off of that point, it's basically your self-talk. You have to watch how you talk to yourself. So I lost most of my 20s to an eating disorder, just like completely in brain fog, like constant thoughts of I am fat, I am not doing enough, I need to eat less, I need to exercise more. Just that was like my mindset. And it's like you said, like you can't hate yourself into abiding by all of these rules that you've made up for yourself, because when you're operating on an extreme level like that, you can only do it for so long. At some point you will give, and then when you do give, you'll be like, oh well, now I suck even more because I failed again. And then you are in like this shame spiral that just goes deeper and deeper. And that's basically what you said about being easier on yourself. But it's more than that. Like, it's not even telling yourself that you're fat. Like, is that really the biggest problem that you have? Mm-hmm. Like, just watching the words that you tell yourself. Because I know in the depths of my eating disorder, like if I heard somebody say those things that I was telling myself to somebody else, I would be like, excuse you? Like, what are you saying? Like, you can't talk to people like that. But it was okay for me to talk to myself like that. And I think maybe it went on for so long because I hid it from everyone. If you are in some sort of shame spiral and you have these dark thoughts, like find someone to reach out to, because fortunately or unfortunately, like you're not a unique unicorn. everyone has been through hard issues, and somebody has been through probably your exact issue and they've survived it. And you can also survive it. But if you're in a deep, dark hole and you do not reach out, like, you might not see that glimmer of hope that you so need to hold on to. That's why I think you do need to tell people and you do need to reach out, because they will give you that hand that could pull you out.
There's a few points that I really want to make, is one relating to the negative self-talk. But I will just draw on what you said about reaching out. That's something I've really gotten better at. And I think one thing that I've done for myself this year has been get really honest with a few select, very close, trusted people. I would say maybe in my life there's 4 people that if I am in a really, really dark place, that these people feel like they will make some space for me to listen. And at the very least, for me, it's really helpful just to have somebody else know that I'm going through something. I don't actually need very much more than that usually. So if I start to feel the dark thoughts creep back in, I will reach out and say, hey, starting to feel the dark thoughts again. I wanted to reach out because I have a tendency to isolate myself. And I say those words because they're true. And I say them to remind my brain that I do this. I say, I have a tendency to isolate myself, so I am reaching out. And even if the conversation doesn't go much further beyond that, I know that my pain has dissipated a little bit. Like it's diffused out into the world a bit. There's somebody else who has heard me and who has seen me. Or I'll text somebody and I'll say, hey, I need a hug. Are you free? And if I have to go drive to them, I will drive to them, or they will drive to me. It's like those little moments of connection that are so important. It doesn't mean that that person is going to become your therapist. I think that that's unhealthy. And at that point, there needs to be some healthier boundaries so that there's no burnout on either side. You don't want to be exhausting this support person, but you do need to have some people in your life that you can bring the most. You need to have people that you can bring your truth to and be super honest. Be like, hey, I've been feeling suicidal again. And have them be like, okay, let's sit together and just be together. It helps to get it out because it cannot stay in your body. It will just erode you from the inside out. I will say that about reaching out.
I would also like to point out that I think it's so amazing that you acknowledge it, because like suppressing it, literally suppressing, you're pressing it back into the body and it will stay in there longer and probably come back worse. So by the act of expressing it to yourself and to other people, I think that allows it the opportunity to surface, kind of be heard, be listened to, and then eventually pass.
And it's a work in progress, and it's something that's ongoing. And if you don't have people like that in your life now, there's lots of ways to meet like-minded people. You would be surprised. I think we could do another whole episode on that, on like community building and finding your people. But one thing I wanted to say about negative self-talk is I actually noticed this quite recently, that throughout my life, whenever I would make a mistake, I'll use an example that I experienced a few months ago, was that there was a grant I wanted to apply for, and I realized that I think the deadline was like October 28th or something like that. And I realized this like the first week of November that I didn't apply. And my immediate internal reaction to any mistake, big or small, is that I am stupid. Now, I don't believe this about myself anymore. But I got very curious about that recently. I thought, is that really the worst thing I could be? Like, that's my first reaction to making any mistake, was that, like, that would be the talk that goes through my head, would be like, I'm so stupid. And I feel so sad for myself that this really went through my head for like 29 years. Well, maybe not the full 29. I don't know. Maybe from like age
Baby
8
Jordan.
to 20. Little baby Jordan is like, stupid. No, but isn't that interesting? It probably wasn't part of little baby Jordan. She just grew up in this toxic society that puts so much pressure and so much, your value and worth is dependent on your productivity, on your external markers of success. But yeah, I got very curious about that recently because sometimes it will still pop up, and but it doesn't so much anymore because I got curious about it, and I kind of feel like I made fun of it. Like, I don't know if any of you read or watched Harry Potter. I don't remember, what's that like shapeless monster that when you go in front of it, it turns into your biggest fear. So for Ron, it was like spiders.
The Crux? I am terrible at movie references.
It's like a Bogart or something, but okay. I feel like that's that's Humphrey Bogart. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Anyways, it's this monster that turns into whatever you're afraid of. And the only way to like scare it away is to make fun of it and laugh at it. And I feel like me getting curious about this and going like, is stupid really the worst thing I could be? Like, there's so many worse things. And what even is stupid, and what is intelligence, and how do you measure it? And I was like, I feel like this self-talk isn't even relevant to me anymore. Like, if someone called me stupid, I'd be like, ooh, sounds like you have some stuff to work out, but that's not mine. You can take that somewhere else. So yeah, I don't know. It's like really getting curious about what you tell yourself, and like journaling really helps with this. I know journaling is just thrown out as like a catch-all for anything, any mental health condition, but journaling actually has been really impactful for me. It's just the act of sitting with yourself and being curious about what kind of things you say to yourself, and just being curious about who you are as a person. Like, and when I think about even like this past Christmas, I went out one day and I bought gifts for myself and I wrapped them. I bought things I was really excited to get. And then a few weeks later, I was writing in my journal about how I promised to love and care for and cherish myself throughout my life. And then I told Tina the next day, I was like, I think I just wrote marriage vows to myself. And now at the age of 30, like I can say like joyfully that I love myself. I believe I am a wonderful, caring, creative, beautiful person. And I believe I deserve to live and experience a long, healthy life. And no matter what happens in my life, if my business quote unquote fails, in a traditional sense, or if I don't quote unquote achieve in a traditional sense, I don't give a shit, because I know my life is worth something, and I know all these experiences are leading me to different paths. And I just don't think I care anymore. Like, I think I'm just fucking ready to live, and whatever happens, I know it's just part of my life journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think a part of that, like whatever happens, that you are able to grow from it and learn from it and move forward. Like, there's nothing else to do. Like, it drives me wild when people are like, oh, you're so strong, you're so resilient. I'm like, was there another option? I would have loved to just like be an ostrich and just like hide in the sand, but I had no other choice than to be strong and be resilient. That's what it is. Yeah. One more thing that you said, the community, I think that has been integral for my growth. I bought my first online course from Ramit Sethi in 2014. So that purchase is probably one of the first things that just started me on my journey, because of the community more than the course itself. I was in a group of amazing people, but first and foremost, they were just people. And I watched them grow businesses, become super successful people, and I think being in an environment around those people long enough, I realized that they were just people, because they also talked about their struggles. I'm very grateful that they did talk about their struggles and the journey and the entrepreneurship stuff and all of that. And you realize that they're just people and they're just trying. And once you expose yourself to enough people, you realize that your idols, your mentors, all these people that you look up to, they're just people, and they're just putting in the hours. And once you see that, you can understand that you can do it, and that you actually can do whatever it is that you put your mind to. You just have to put in the hours.
I mean, I think there's also material circumstances that people go through that make it like that set up barriers for them that would make that a lot harder than some people can't just put in the hours, but I think that there's much more possibility than we all give ourselves credit for. Mm-hmm. And
you don't even know what options are there if you're not looking.
That's true.
So
that's true.
Just like open yourself up to the possibility, because anything is possible.
That's also true.
I mean, if you talked to 12-year-old Tina and you told her that one day you're going to be talking about your feelings on video so that, I don't know, potentially thousands or even like 10 people saw that are not your mom, I'd be like, you're fucking crazy. Ain't ever gonna happen.
Yeah, true. Yeah, if you told 12-year-old Jordan that, well, yeah, because 12-year-old Jordan was being bullied. And so I would have been like, that is extremely unlikely. I couldn't really imagine even those circumstances changing or getting better. Like, I was being bullied when I was 12, 13.
Yeah, like I just wanted people to like me, so I never had an opinion because I was scared that people wouldn't like my opinion and then they wouldn't like me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting, like, how we tie our self-worth as well to somebody else's opinion of us. Actually, I think this is a really good example. So the other day, my girlfriend was showing me a game that she really likes, and she downloaded it on my computer, and she was really excited. I did not like this game at all. And I'm going to be honest, like, I'm not like trying to rain on your parade, but this is not something I would enjoy playing together. Like, you're welcome to play that by yourself, but let's find another game that we can play together. And when I Googled this game, because she's like, I used to love this game like 5 years ago, and it was really popular. I Googled it because I'm like, I wonder how popular this game was. And on this gaming system, it had over 100,000 reviews, and it had a 5 out of 5 star rating, a perfect rating from over 100,000 people. And I was like, yeah, I don't really like it. So just consider that. That if someone doesn't like you, okay, so, like, what do you want me to do with that? Like,
that would have been soul crushing to teenager Tina to not have someone like me. I didn't even like them, and if they didn't like me, it would ruin my day.
Oh my God, there have been people that I've dated in the past that now looking back, I don't even think I liked them. Like, looking back at my, like looking at my list of traits that I wanted in a partner and things that I value, these people were not emotionally available, not attentive to my needs. I didn't have fun with them. I didn't laugh with them. I didn't really enjoy being with them or really like their personality, but I wanted so desperately to be liked by them that I was devastated when it ended. And looking back, I'm like cringe. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know how I allowed myself to stay in that. I wouldn't even call it a relationship.
Well, for me, it was because I thought that I was a bad person and I didn't deserve any better. So I might as well hold on to whatever I can get.
Oh, same. Actually, that's why. That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it was.
Well, I mean, we could literally talk about this for so long, but I think we can wrap it up there.
Yeah.
We would love to hear your thoughts on what we've said so far, and like if anything resonated. This was a very heavy episode for the both of us.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so deep and like so dark, and it's episode number 2.
Yeah. I'm happy we're diving in though, because these topics are so real and for so many people. I'm not sure why we're not talking about this more. Like, for me, I'm at a point where I just can't do small talk anymore. Like, it rained the other day. That's not interesting to me. We all can go outside. We can see that it rained.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about that? I want to hear about your feelings and how you overcame things in your life and your values. And, I want to know you. I want to know people. So I'm happy that we're doing this. I'm hoping that you will leave us a comment. You can now listen to us on Spotify, so please leave us a review if you're listening on Spotify. We would love to hear from you. You can DM us at Shamelessly Sensitive. All of the information on how to contact us will be in the show notes. But please share your story with us. Mm-hmm. That's like one of the most exciting parts of doing this for me.
Me too. Community. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us.